You know how your favorite streaming service has that option now down here in the corner that says skip intro, and sometimes you're just like, not today, my friend. Hey, what's up, bookworms and couch potatoes? Mike back with another off the book segment that's kind of random. In fact, I'd be surprised if any of you are actually watching this. This is a topic that kind of used to come up on the old podcast that I used to do, and I thought it'd be a fun time to revisit it. Something that we came up with quite frequently there was, some TV series that have a theme song or an intro sequence that you would just find completely unskippable no matter how many times you've heard it, no matter how many times you've seen it. You're not skipping it. You're not getting up to go get a drink, nothing like that. You're watching it, you're listening to it, you're probably jamming out to it. So I've got a handful of those here. Now, these aren't ranked or anything, and I wish I could just play them for you, but I am still trying to avoid getting copyright strikes on this channel, and YouTube loves to hand those out. It's like free candy on this little website here. But we're going to go ahead and talk about them. I've kind of got them broke into categories here. Just kind of talk about why I like them. I don't know. Like I said, this is kind of random, but I think it is a good conversation starter because there are things I like to do besides read, and I know that you guys do too. And TV usually seems to be something that everyone can agree with that they like to do sometimes. So let's go ahead and kick it off with science fiction. I watch a ton of science fiction TV during the years. Now, I want to say up front, guys, I am, probably a little older than most of you that are watching this, if you are watching this. So there are going to be some times you're like, what are you talking about, old man? That's going to happen. That's going to happen. But I think I got a good mix here of all of these things. So let's go ahead and kick it off, like I said, with science fiction. This is Star Trek: The Next Generation. How do you take that awesome intro from the original series and make it better? Well, I love Shatner, but Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, he's got an incredible speaking voice. And when he can do that same Strange New Worlds kind of speech that we got in the original series, it made it even more epic. And then you got like the ship and you got falling right into the cockpit and stuff. That was cutting edge stuff in the late 80s, guys. And this was like right after Star Wars had ended, and I had a sci-fi hole in my heart I needed, and Next Generation brought it, and it really did with that intro sequence. Still to the day, one of the ones that I like to hum the most, and I still do my coffee mug, everything. I still love to rewatch that series all of the time, and I will never ever skip that theme song. Another one is the X-Files, guys. Now, back in a time when I believed that the United States government was competent enough to keep secrets from us, the X-Files was everything to me. And that intro sequence was amazing because it was just like, oh my God, what wild and crazy shit are they going to show us this week? And it looks so funny sometimes. You watch that intro, it's like, this is really generic, but that theme song just slaps, and of course, there's something just mystical about it, I think, and that's why it's just something that always stuck with me. And of course, that theme song, again, one of the most iconic theme songs I think ever. Everybody knew what that meant, right? And trust no one, that's just something that we kind of took to heart long before Stone Cold Steve Austin made us trust no one. Stargate SG-1 is one of my favorite science fiction shows of all time, and what I love about that introduction is it took that really great theme from the 1994 movie, and it just almost made the intro sequence almost look like it was the intro of like a comic book or something. You had the close-ups of their faces and then like the side profile with the Stargate in the background. Just a visually stunning introduction, I think, with just a really awesome theme song, which also would update and show some scenes from the show over the years, depending on what season you were in. I think like 5 or 6 is when that intro sequence was at its peak, and it just got better and better as it went along. For the most part, I love a theme or an intro sequence for a TV show that will update over time. I think that's something that's a really nice touch, and you'd be surprised that not too many shows do it. I don't know if you really want to put this one under science fiction, but it's where I thought to put it. I'm gonna go with Stranger Things on Netflix. Stranger Things is weird because you look at that title sequence and it's like it's just red letters. But that song is amazing, and I will never ever skip it. I love that font. It's stunning to me that font is not Stephen King font. It's so much about that felt like I was watching a Stephen King book with a soundtrack by John Carpenter. That's what it always felt like to me. So, of course, that being two things I love, John Carpenter movies and Stephen King, that was always going to click with me. But very 80s kind of intro sequence, which does play into the theme of that show, and it's just just awesome. Easily one of the biggest earworms ever made for a TV series. Another Netflix sci-fi series I really, really like isn't even in English. It's called Dark, and the intro sequence for that is just, it's unique in that it looks like a kaleidoscope, but it's got like scenes from the show, but you really are trying to decipher what they are, which is actually just appropriate for what that show is, because you are trying to decipher so many mysteries watching that show. But the song called Goodbye by Apparat, that is currently my ringtone on my phone. I like that song so much. Just a beautifully haunting song that just fits the whole mood of that show. And I talked about that when I talked about my favorite sci-fi shows, guys. You gotta check out Dark if you haven't. I don't care if you don't want to read your show. There is dubbing, but I don't recommend it because it's really, really painfully bad. The show is in German, so if you speak or understand German, you're in luck. If not, hey guys, this is a reading channel. You should like to read, if you're watching this. So, I say watch that with the subtitles on. It's really, really just a wonderful, wonderful show, as was for many years Doctor Who. Now, for me, I didn't start until New Who. I remember my parents watching like Tom Baker's last episode when I was very, very young, didn't really understand what was going on. But with me, New Who, and I'm talking mostly about the theme as it was done by Murray Gold. It's changed since then. This theme song changes every couple of years. They don't like to keep it the same because, they're changing doctors, they're changing actors and things like that. Cast rotates in and out. So I feel like they want to kind of update it, but they kept that theme most of the same. I think around like Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, like his first year was when I think the theme song was just perfect. But it's another one I've had as my ringtone before, and it's another one that's just, it goes up here and it never really ever stops. And lastly, for a classic's sake, got to go with the Twilight Zone, the original series of the Twilight Zone. And I feel like there's two. There's the do-do-do-do that everybody knows, but then there's just the one that has just like the opening monologue by Rod Serling, which just sets the tone for what that show really, really was. So I think that's both of those versions are really, really good. But a lot of people think that famous sound effect is the theme song from the show, but it's not actually. But I can't talk about Twilight Zone without talking about that nice little cue there. How about some comedy? Let's liven it up a little bit. There are some comedies on here. Now, I'm not crazy about sitcoms, but there are some that have stuck with me, and I've watched, and some of them have just really, really great theme songs. I don't think there's anyone who grew up in my generation who don't know every single word to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I think that most of us could do it right now without any warm-up, any practice, nothing. We could do every beat and even go do. We could do the whole thing, and it's just so fun. I mean, this is when Will Smith was first really, really blowing up to general audiences, and that show really just took his career to new levels before he really became a big screen actor. But that song, easily one of the most inventive and creative and fun theme songs I think of all time. Like I said, I don't think there's anybody who's probably not trying to sing it right now as I talk about it. Another one, and I'm not talking about the DVD or the stream release because they removed the song because of royalties, but Married with Children had Frank Sinatra singing Love and Marriage. That was always really good. Another one of those that kind of updated because you can watch different seasons of the show and you see Peggy and Kelly's hair change. Al gets less and less hair, but he always looks miserable as he's just handing them the money, and Buck got a little older. Then they changed Buck because the actual dog died and things. But I love it. Just kind of goes through the years on that show when you watch that sequence over and over and over again. But it just kind of captures what that show was all about, just showing how miserable he really, really was and how much his kids and wife just don't care at all. So, good times. This one, I know a lot of people probably groan about it because I know that it's become like cool to like dunk on Friends lately. I don't know why. I mean, Friends was a show I never really missed the whole run it was on. And guys, that theme song by the Rembrandts was so popular, it actually became a radio hit. I can't have a rerun of that show on today without going during that one part. You know what part I'm talking about. So yeah, Friends has just an iconic theme song that you immediately know what show it's from and exactly probably know what's going on. You're imagining people jumping in a water fountain as you are hearing that song play. So I love that show, and I've got no regrets admitting it. I have no problems if you didn't like it, but I don't think it has to be like a competition. People will be like, oh, well, Parks and Rec was better, or The Office was better, or Seinfeld was better. Hey, these are all great shows, but I'll always go with the Friends theme song over those shows. Although I do like Parks and Recs a lot. How about The Simpsons, guys? This has got to be, if this was a ranking, this would be a top 3, I think, because you want to talk about an intro sequence that changes all the time. Every single Bart is at the blackboard. There's something different there. There's lots of things that do update on that intro sequence, and just that theme by Danny Elfman is just Again, another one of those that you hear just a few tones from. Do 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 do. You know exactly what it is. Do 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 do. You know exactly what's going on and where you are going to Springfield. It's a great time. But that intro sequence, I don't think that. I mean, another one that's going to come up on this list is like if the Simpsons like spoofed your intro, you knew that you were doing something great, because I think a lot of people would have this as their number one if they were ranking these. How about some drama, guys? There are some dramas on here. I gotta say, the first time I ever really associated something with that HBO cold open, the static screen, the HBO, that I always immediately went into Woke Up This Morning by Alabama 3, and that is, of course, the Sopranos theme song. Now, as far as that intro goes, nothing really special about it, showing Tony driving from across the turnpike from New Jersey into New York. It's nothing really super special unless you've been there or you live there or something like that. But that theme song is just awesome. It's one of those, just something about the beat to that theme song always made it to where I am not skipping this. Let's see what the boys are up to this week. I can't wait to see who gets got, who gets dead, and who turns state's evidence. So great theme song to one of the greatest TV shows ever made. This one might actually make some people scoff a little bit, but when this show came out, it was just above where I was in age. So it was kind of that thing like, I can't wait till I get to high school. So when I was in junior high and Beverly Hills 90210 first came out, man, it was just like a pop culture phenomenon. It really was. And all ages of kids were watching that show. But, to this day, da-na-na-na, right? So, again, one of the most iconic themes of the late 80s, early 90s. Actually, I think that started in 1990 is when that show actually went on. Now, that show probably went on a little too long, and so they had to keep updating that introduction as well. But that song always would get you hyped up for what are these crazy kids getting into trouble with this week. Sons of Anarchy. Now, this is one that you wouldn't think is anything special, but I talk about theme songs where there are intro sequences where the cast evolves. Now, no spoilers here for me, because I still think if you haven't watched Sons of Anarchy, you need to ASAP. But let's just say that cast changes a lot over the 7 seasons of that show. So seeing things on the intro sequence update, where they usually show like some kind of a defining feature of one of the characters, like Juice's tattoo or something like that. They always show something like that. So that intro sequence would update a little bit. But that song by Curtis Stigers, This Life, earworm of all time. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, what is this? This doesn't really fit. By episode 3, I was singing it every single day. It's just a great song. So, I can't not put that one on here. Just like I can't not talk about the Wonder Years, guys. Now, the Wonder Years, I actually was about the age of Kevin Arnold on that show when it came out, but it took place in the 50s, so that I can't say I identified or anything like that, but it was something that I could say, okay, I can see that these themes haven't really changed from when my parents were in school and I was in school. But again, this theme song, guys, you've got Joe Cocker singing a very famous Beatles song with a little help from my friends, and you got like the grainy 8mm home video footage. Just reeks of nostalgia. So they just absolutely hit a home run with that one, and I would never ever think about skipping that song. Now, this one's going to seem kind of odd to some people because it isn't really what I call an intro sequence, because it's really just a title card with a little bit of music maybe. And I'm going to put them together for that reason. I'm talking about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which really, like I said, just a quick title card. Now, Better Call Saul did add like something new in the background a lot of episodes. Breaking Bad's was pretty much the same every single time, I think. Someone might correct me on that one. But I got to say that those two really set the tone for, okay, I'm about to get into some of the deepest drama that I've ever been into. And I'm still not over the fact that universe is over. But you know what? It's better to go out on top, ain't it? How about some action and adventure? I got to start with Smallville, guys. Now, I'm a huge Superman fan. So when Smallville came out, gosh, what was it, in the early 2000s? I wasn't expecting a lot, but what I definitely wasn't expecting was just a slap of a theme song and an opening sequence. I think it was Save Me by Remy Zero. Would never ever skip this because it's just so awesome. They would always update that sequence, and what I loved about it is it kind of looked like you were reading the panels of a comic book, but if they like came to life. It really was. Each one had like the introduction and like something going on over here, kind of like the Stargate one that I mentioned earlier. Such a cool intro sequence. It changed every single season, and no matter what you felt about the show, I felt like that intro sequence was really, really great. But you know what? I've seen every episode of Smallville, and I've gotten zero regrets. Well, maybe some. There are some episodes where I'm like, wow, okay. But you know what? X-Files had those episodes too. My favorite show of all time, guys, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The theme song by Nerf Herder. Yes, that scruffy-looking Nerf Herder. Again, the sequence changes every single year because all the actors and actresses on that show, their hair changed every single year. New people came in, old people went out, things like that. Angel spun off into his own show, so they had to keep updating that title sequence as the show got more and more popular. But yeah, I absolutely not would ever skip that. Yeah, it's just so good. So good. I love it. And again, there might be some nostalgia attached to them. There's nostalgia attached to most of these, especially in the action category here. A lot of these are going to be really, really 80s for you here in a minute. But that, to me, was perfect because I was the exact age of those characters in high school when that show came out. And so that show will always be special to me because it was the first one where I felt like, that's how kids talk to each other. But, I could do a whole episode on Buffy, and I would love to. But, yeah, that intro sequence, it still kicks ass as much as the Slayer does. How about the A-Team, guys? Anybody here remember the A-Team, Mr. T, all those things? I just thought, for as a young man, the idea of this is basically a live-action G.I. Joe, and I was all about G.I. Joe at that age. And Mr. T was just the coolest, and that theme song, if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team. Such a cool voiceover, and then the machine gun, and then da-da-da-da, just, it got you hyped up. It got you excited for, that hour of adventure you were going to get that week, even if it hasn't aged the best, but at the time period, guys, it was awesome, and that theme song is still excellent, as is the theme song for Knight Rider, another show that probably hasn't aged that well. But you know what? The Knight Rider theme song is so iconic that it gets sampled in other songs currently. Like to this day, you still hear that do 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 do. For me, growing up, I love that car and the idea that your sports car could talk to you. I've still got the sports car bug. But yeah, that's really, really kick-ass. And I haven't watched the show in so long. It might just be unwatchable. I don't know. But again, guys, I was just the right age when these shows came up. Same with Airwolf. Another one where the sequence, you might not think that much of it, but the title song is just kick-ass. And what's cooler than sports cars, man? A nice just military helicopter blowing shit up. That was just awesome to me in the 80s. That was everything that I wanted to see, So, yeah, that combined with that theme song, tough to beat as a young man. Last category I got is fantasy/historical fiction. Some of these I really just don't know where to put them. But I've got to start with Black Sails. Now, this is a show that was on Starz, a show that I feel like is very underrated because not that many people seem to talk about it. I think it's because it was on Starz, but I was like, guys, the writing and the twists on the show were just as good as like Game of Thrones at the time. It really, really was. And that theme song, look, Bear McCreary is the John Williams of TV. That guy makes movie cinema scores for television. He's just that good at it. He's done a lot of stuff that you probably recognize. Really came into it with Battlestar Galactica for me is what put him on my radar. But what he did with Black Sails is just, that intro sequence combined with the, the skeletons and stuff, which actually look like they're moving. It's such a cool sequence, guys. Please look that up on YouTube if you've not seen it before. I think you'd like the show as well. If you've read Treasure Island, I think that you would be all about it because that's what it's based off of. But yeah, such a kick-ass opening that really just gets you just like jacked up and ready to go fight some, to go out on this pirate ship and start fighting people. That's what makes you feel like I just want to like run through a wall. Next up, I got Vikings from History Channel. The song If I Had a Heart by Fever Ray. It really, for whatever reason, it combined it to where it felt like, okay, this is like a big, epic, just a Norse saga, but like if it was mixed with like a Pink Floyd heavy metal combo, like Mastodon or something. That's what it felt like, almost like a heavy metal intro for a Viking Norse saga. So to this day, I still, every time I would finish an episode, I'd be like, give me more, because that theme song was so good. And that show in its prime, man, was tough to beat. It really was. How about the big one here, guys? This would be number one for most people. Game of Thrones. It's a popular pick, but you know what? It's popular for a reason. Like I said, The Simpsons actually spoofed this. That's how you know that you've really, really made it. I still think it's probably one of the most hummed theme songs of all time. It probably tops a lot of cell phone ringtones. But with that, it's just, again, you want to talk about something that updated a lot. obviously you had different lands wherever they would go that episode. The episode would change for those lands and stuff. It had like that Google Earth kind of look to it, with the cogs and the wheels and stuff. But to me, it was just, they would always update the cast because, as you know, that cast did rotate quite a bit. They would always put like their house sigils next to them and things like that. Just little touches like that made us book readers really, really happy when we saw that come to life. But yeah, something I think is just going to be copied for decades. People are going to try to say, how do we get an intro sequence is just as iconic as Game of Thrones has become. And my last one here, guys, this is going to be the biggest nostalgia pick of all time here, because some people are going to be like, it's corny. And you had to grow up with it. You had to. Guys, you don't understand what a cultural phenomenon He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was to my generation at that age. Something about holding up anything that you could find and being like, I have the power. I mean, that was it. That was it in the 80s, guys. And people don't understand how big He-Man was for that generation. And it wasn't just because how cool it was, like a guy punching people in the face. I mean, yeah, there was that, but I mean, you also had like kind of like G.I. Joe, with like the more you know. You had like these moments where He-Man would like talk to you, and when you were growing up in a broken home, like a lot of kids of my generation were, that was kind of like your parents talking to you there when He-Man would tell you what was a good moral code and stuff. That was really, really touching stuff. And so this theme song, always, I mean, we would never skip that. I have the power. I mean, the whole speech, pointing the sword and shooting the lightning bolt at Cringer, and he becomes fucking Battle Cat. That was everything, man. That was just like, yeah, it was just a boy power fantasy, and it's something that will always stick with me, and that's why I was so excited when Masters of the Universe relaunched, even if it didn't quite go where I was hoping it would. But I've talked about that in the channel before. But guys, I think that's 25 of them. That's 25. Now look, when I first put this list together, it was like 50. So I actually did tone this down, and it also made me realize, man, you used to watch a lot of TV. But I know that there's a lot more. I'm sure there's tons I haven't thought about. Like, I could have put every single FX show that I've ever watched on here. There's so many good ones. And when you really start writing them down and thinking about it, you realize just how many shows out there had really, really good, just great, awesome, memorable intro sequences. And I'm glad it's something that seems like it's starting to make a comeback on some shows. A lot of shows, either they just didn't have it, or they just have a title screen or something like that. It seems like it is making a comeback, and you know what? I am here for it. So guys, if you made it this far, thank you, because I love to do a little off the books once in a while. But also let me know some of your favorite intro themes or sequences, any of that stuff, some that you would never ever consider skipping, no matter how many times you've seen it. I can't wait to hear them. So drop them down below, guys, and I will talk to you there.